Hello, it's Chris Hawthorne here again with another midweek message to share with you. And this week we are looking at John chapter 11 and verse 25. It simply says, I am the resurrection and the life. We've already looked at John chapter 11 when Richard Begg shared his thoughts on one of the 7 signs, which was the raising of Lazarus. Richard shared his thoughts on the 3 central characters which he felt was important and helpful, and those characters he chose were Thomas, Martha and Mary. He also helpfully explored how these 3 characters, through their struggles and wrestling with their faith at that time when Lazarus had died, began to learn. Each person in her own way or his own way grows in their understanding of the spiritual truths which began to emerge, because God teaches us in ways that we can grasp at each and every point in our life. And Richard also pointed to the word John uses when he writes that very short verse, Jesus wept. And the Greek word he chooses for wept doesn't simply mean that Jesus was weeping out of grief. It was also out of anger and frustration. And his anger and frustration were based on the fact that people do not understand that death is not the end. We do not live in hopelessness because Jesus has given us these signs and wonders that explain to us that he is the resurrection and the life, that through his crucifixion and his resurrection, we can come back and be close, be at one with God. So let me remind you of the passage that this particular I am saying is found in. And as I said, it's John 11, and I'm reading verses 1 to 27. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to Jesus, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard this, he said, the illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Mary and her sister Martha and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this he said to his disciples, let us go to Judea again. And the disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. After saying these things, Jesus said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. And the disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. Now Jesus had spoken of the death of Lazarus, but they had thought that he simply meant he was taking rest through sleep. And then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died. And for your sake I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. Let us go to him. So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out and met him. But Mary remained seated in the house. And Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. And Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live, and everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. Thanatophobia. Thanatophobia is the fear of death. And it's a fear that most of us either do have or at some point have experienced. For some people, this phobia is the overwhelming, overpowering fear based on the notion that one day they will die. For others, the phobia is based on how they die, a fear that it will be in some way debilitating, painful, or whatever. Part of the force of a phobia is that we find ourselves out of control, overwhelmed, and therefore unable to behave as we normally would. And yet the one thing we know is that people die, and that one day we shall also die. I checked this out, and around 10,000 people die every week in the UK. And whilst that registered death rate has fallen steadily, it's halved between 1974 and 2011, and that's mainly due to improvements in tackling heart disease and preventing people smoking, and also improvements in medical advances, it doesn't stop the fact that ultimately people die. It's something we have to face. And if you think about it, in Jesus' times, death rates were far higher. People were used to seeing and hearing of babies not surviving, young children not surviving, mothers dying in childbirth. There were, of course, regular executions, and people died of illnesses which in those days were incurable. So we might understand that the fear of death was at a slightly different level in those days. But beneath and beyond this is our awareness of and our fear that death is an end to life, to love, and to our hopes. But in this story of Jesus raising Lazarus from death, we need to see beyond the miracle. And I think you will know this because Richard Begg and Richard Westwood have pointed out to that fact. Miracles are signs. They are not ends in themselves. Jesus raised Jairus' daughter from the grave with those beautiful and gentle Aramaic words, Talitha koum, which just means, little girl, arise. And we can read about that in Mark's Gospel. And in Luke's Gospel, in chapter 7, we can read of the widow's son in Nain being brought back from the dead. In each story of a resurrection, it's Jesus' compassion, his care for a grieving widow, a worried father, and for his good friends Mary and Martha, which is prominent. And the sign is prominent. Jesus has power over death, over the grave. Why? Because he says so. He says it clearly when he states, I am the resurrection and the life. I mentioned in the very first message where we started to look at the I am sayings of those Greek words, ego, eimi, the Greek for I am. And they are words that would resonate to Greek readers because they refer to the holy name of God. And Jesus is saying that he is of God. He is God in a way which is a mysterious fact that we can try to grasp onto through faith. Jesus has power over death, and we need have no fear. When we look to Jesus and when we in faith turn to him, we start our journey to eternal life. Through his teaching and through his example, we can in faith receive this gift, this knowledge that God's love offers us mercy, and by the grace given to us through Jesus, we will be able to live in holiness and love. And at the deepest level, at a level that I would describe as an eternal truth, Jesus is the resurrection and the life. And when we fully realize this, we can begin to follow Jesus in a new